My name is Judy, 61 years old, and until yesterday, I owned a beautiful $3 million beach house where I planned to spend my retirement. That changed when my daughter Amanda stood in my living room, her face twisted with entitlement, and said those words I never thought I'd hear: "You have 24 hours to get out." Little did she know that the modest life her father and I chose to live masked an $80 million fortune. As I looked into my daughter's cold eyes, I simply smiled. She had no idea what was coming. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you're watching from and hit that like and subscribe button. Trust me, you'll want to see how I handled my entitled daughter's shocking demand. I grew up in a small Midwestern town called Millfield, where everyone knew everyone else and most families struggled to make ends meet. My parents owned the local hardware store, and while we never went hungry, luxuries were rare. I learned the value of hard work by stocking shelves after school and doing the books on weekends. Those early lessons about money would shape my entire life, though I never imagined how important they would become. I met my husband Frank during my sophomore year of college. I was studying accounting on a partial scholarship, working two jobs to cover the rest. Frank was studying business with big dreams about real estate. He came from an even more modest background than mine. His father had abandoned the family when Frank was just 8, leaving his mother to raise 4 children on a waitress's salary. Land, Frank would tell me during our dates at the cheap diner where we could afford to split a meal, is the only thing they aren't making any more of. If you understand land, you understand wealth. We married right after graduation in a small ceremony my parents could barely afford. Instead of a honeymoon, we used our wedding gift money as a down payment on a dilapidated duplex. We lived in one unit and rented out the other. Every evening after our day jobs, we would work together repairing and renovating that building. Frank had a natural talent for seeing potential where others saw ruin. That first property turned into 2, then 5, then a dozen. Frank had an uncanny ability to identify neighborhoods that would appreciate in value. By our 10th anniversary, we had a small but growing real estate company. Still, we lived modestly, saving and reinvesting everything we could. When I became pregnant with Amanda in our 8th year of marriage, Frank and I had our first serious discussion about wealth and parenting. "I want our child to have opportunities we never had," Frank said as he held my hand across our kitchen table. "But I never want them to take those opportunities for granted." "What do you mean?" I asked, rubbing my growing belly. "My mother cleaned houses for wealthy families," Frank explained. "I saw how their children behaved, entitled, ungrateful, ruined by never knowing struggle. I don't want that for our baby." We made a pact that night. Despite our growing success, we would raise our child to understand the value of hard work. We would live comfortably but modestly. Most importantly, we would not raise a child who felt entitled to wealth they had not earned. Amanda came into our world on a rainy Tuesday morning. She was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and lungs that let the entire maternity ward know she had arrived. From the moment I held her, I knew I would do anything to give her a good life, not just financially, but morally and ethically as well. As Amanda grew, so did our business. By her 5th birthday, we had expanded into commercial real estate and property development. Frank had a gift for seeing potential in rundown neighborhoods, and our investments multiplied. We set up trusts diversified into stocks and bonds and built a portfolio that would have astounded anyone who knew us from our humble beginnings. Yet we still lived in the same upgraded starter home. We drove practical cars. Amanda attended public school. We took modest vacations. From the outside, we looked like a typical middle-class American family. "We could afford so much more," I once said to Frank when Amanda was about 10. "Are we depriving her?" "We're giving her something more valuable than things," Frank replied. "We're giving her perspective." When Amanda was 15, our carefully constructed life faced its greatest challenge. Frank was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. The prognosis was grim from the start. During those final months as the cancer rapidly took my vibrant husband Frank, worried most about Amanda. "I see it starting, Judy," he whispered one night from his hospital bed. The entitlement. The expectation that things should come easily. He wasn't wrong. Amanda had begun to complain about our lifestyle compared to some of her wealthier friends. Why couldn't she have designer clothes? Why didn't we vacation in Europe? Why did she have to work a summer job when her friends spent their time at country clubs? "Promise me something," Frank said, holding my hand with what little strength he had left. "Don't tell her about everything until she's ready, until she understands that wealth is a responsibility, not a right, Let her earn her way. I promised. 1 week later, Frank was gone. What no one knew, not even our closest friends, was just how successful Frank had been. Our accountants valued our holdings at over $50 million at the time of his death. The property's investments and business interests were structured in complex trusts and LLCs, all perfectly legal but intentionally discreet. After Frank's funeral, I had decisions to make. I could reveal everything to Amanda then, 16 and already showing worrying signs of entitlement. Or I could honor Frank's wish and continue to raise her with the values we both believed in. I chose the latter. The bulk of Frank's estate went into trusts that Amanda couldn't access until she demonstrated financial responsibility. Meanwhile, I quietly took over management of our business empire, which continued to grow over the years to reach nearly $80 million. For all outward appearances, I was simply a middle-class widow, raising a daughter alone, perhaps, with a modest inheritance from my husband's small business. The truth was far different. As Amanda moved through her high school years, her sense of entitlement only grew stronger. She compared our life unfavorably to her wealthier friends, never recognizing that in reality we likely had more wealth than many of their families. I hoped this phase would pass, that maturity would bring wisdom and gratitude. I was wrong. Amanda's college years marked a turning point in her attitude toward money and what she believed she deserved. Despite having the grades for a scholarship, she insisted on attending an exclusive private university with a hefty price tag. I agreed to pay, hoping the experience might broaden her perspective. Everyone at Westfield has their own car, she complained during her first semester. They're all driving BMWs and Mercedes, Mom. I look like a scholarship case in my Honda. I didn't mention that her old Honda was only 2 years old, or that I could have bought her any car she wanted without blinking. Instead, I suggested she could work part-time if she wanted to upgrade. Nobody works at Westfield, Mom. That's not how normal rich kids live. We're not rich, Amanda, I said, maintaining the fiction we'd created. We're comfortable. There's a difference. She rolled her eyes, a gesture that became increasingly common. Amanda graduated with a business degree and impressive connections, but little practical experience. Frank would have insisted she start at the bottom of a company and work her way up. Instead, she took an entry-level position at a marketing firm through a college friend's recommendation. The job lasted 6 weeks. It's beneath me, she explained over dinner after quitting without notice. They had me making copies and coffee. I have a degree from Westfield. Over the next 3 years, Amanda cycled through a series of failed ventures, each one funded by me despite my reservations. First came a small coffee shop in a trendy neighborhood. Amanda lost interest in the daily operations within months, leaving the management to increasingly frustrated employees while she collected the owner's salary. When the coffee shop inevitably failed, she convinced me to invest in a boutique clothing store. 6 months later, it closed. After that, an art gallery that showcased her college friends' work but rarely made sales. With each failure, Amanda blamed external factors: the location, the economy, her employees, never her own lack of commitment or business acumen. And with each failure, I wrote another check, hoping this would be the lesson that finally taught her responsibility. Then Amanda met Tyler at a charity gala I had reluctantly agreed to sponsor. Tall, charming, and smoothly confident Tyler came from a family with old money and new financial problems. Their wealth had been depleted over generations, but they maintained the appearance and connections of affluence. Tyler swept Amanda off her feet with expensive dates and weekend trips, presumably financed by credit cards. She was dazzled by his social circle and the doors he promised to open for her. "He understands me, Mom," she gushed. "He knows I'm meant for bigger things." 6 months later, they were engaged. I had serious reservations about Tyler. There was something calculating behind his practiced charm, but Amanda wouldn't hear a word against him. Planning began for a wedding that grew increasingly lavish by the day. "It's just once in a lifetime, Mom," Amanda insisted when I questioned the need for a 5-tier cake or imported flowers. "Don't you want me to have the perfect day?" I relented, as I always did, and wrote the checks for a wedding that cost more than most people's homes. On her wedding day, Amanda looked beautiful and happier than I'd seen her in years. I told myself that perhaps Tyler, despite my misgivings, might be good for her. As a wedding gift, I purchased them a lovely starter home in a desirable neighborhood. It was worth considerably more than what a typical parent might provide, but still modest compared to what I could have afforded. Amanda and Tyler accepted with minimal gratitude, immediately making plans for renovations and upgrades. After the wedding, I saw less and less of my daughter. When we did get together, Tyler was always present, subtly controlling the conversation and constantly redirecting Amanda's attention if we started to connect. He would make small comments about my home or car, implying they were beneath their standards. "You could really update this place, Judy," he would say, gesturing around my perfectly comfortable home. "Amanda tells me her dad had some success in real estate. Surely there must be a little something set aside for improvements." Meanwhile, Amanda's social media accounts became showcases of their life, carefully curated to appear more affluent than it was. She posted about exclusive restaurants, weekend getaways, and shopping trips, always tagging her wealthier friends. The disparity between the image she projected and their actual financial situation grew wider. The catalyst for our eventual confrontation came when Amanda discovered that the beach house, a modest but beautiful property worth about $3 million, was solely in my name. Frank had purchased it years ago as an investment, but we had spent many happy summers there as a family. "Why isn't the beach house in a family trust?" Amanda demanded during a tense phone call. "That should be shared property." "It was purchased with the proceeds from your father's business," I explained carefully. "It's an investment property that happens to have sentimental value. But we're family. That house has always been part of our summers. I've been telling Tyler we could use it for entertaining." I didn't mention that Amanda hadn't visited the beach house in over 3 years, not since she met Tyler. Nor did I point out that she had never contributed to its upkeep or property taxes. In the weeks following that conversation, Amanda's resentment festered. She began making comments about family property and her inheritance. I suspected Tyler was fueling these expectations, perhaps hoping to access wealth he assumed existed. I tried numerous times to counsel Amanda about financial responsibility and gratitude for what she had, rather than resentment for what she didn't. Each attempt was met with increasing hostility. "You have no idea what it's like," she snapped during our last civil conversation. "All my friends inherited family money. They don't have to struggle or pinch pennies. Their parents understand what it means to give their children a proper start in life." The distance between us grew until it seemed impassable. My daughter, who I had raised with love and what I thought were good values, had become a stranger consumed by entitlement and material desires. Frank would have been heartbroken to see what had become of our little girl. The confrontation that would change everything began innocently enough with a family gathering at the beach house on Memorial Day weekend. I had invited Amanda and Tyler along with a few close family friends who had known Frank, hoping the nostalgic setting might rekindle warmer feelings between us. The first day passed pleasantly enough. Amanda seemed more relaxed, away from her usual social pressures, and even Tyler was on his best behavior, charming our guests with stories and attentively refilling drinks. But throughout the day, I caught Amanda making odd comments that set my nerves on edge. "When this place is mine, I'm going to knock out this wall and open up the whole floor plan," she said casually while we prepared dinner. Later, when one of our guests complimented the antique dining table that Frank and I had purchased on our 10th anniversary, Amanda responded, "Yes, it's lovely, but it probably won't fit with our redesign plans." I let these comments slide, not wanting to create tension during what had been a pleasant reunion. That evening, after most guests had retired to their rooms, I went to the kitchen for a glass of water. Passing by the patio, I overheard Amanda and Tyler speaking in hushed but intense tones. "We need to move faster," Tyler was saying. "The market is hot right now. If we wait until she's ready to downsize naturally, we could miss our window." "I know," Amanda replied, her voice unrecognizable to me. "But we need to be smart about getting rid of Mom. She's stubborn, and technically everything is still in her name." "Your father should have put everything in proper trusts for you," Tyler said bitterly. "It's not right that she controls everything. You're the daughter. You deserve your inheritance now, not when she decides." I froze, my heart pounding. Getting rid of me. Was this simply about pressuring me to move out of the beach house or something more sinister? I slipped away before they could notice me returning to my room with my mind racing. The next morning, I rose early and went to my small home office to collect myself. As I organized some papers, I noticed that my filing cabinet drawer was slightly ajar. I always kept it locked. Looking more closely, I could see that several folders had been disturbed, including those containing information about the beach house and some of our family's financial statements. These documents wouldn't have revealed the true extent of our wealth. Those records were kept with my attorneys and financial advisors, but they would have shown that the beach house was indeed solely in my name, along with hints about other properties. Amanda had been going through my private papers, likely looking for leverage or information she could use. The realization felt like a physical blow. Our final dinner that weekend began cordially enough. The guests were enjoying themselves, sharing stories about Frank and reminiscing about previous gatherings. Then Amanda clinked her glass for attention. "I'd like to make an announcement," she said, standing with Tyler's arm around her waist. "Tyler and I have decided it's time to put down permanent roots here at the beach. Mom has enjoyed this house for many years, but we feel it's time for the next generation to make memories here." The table fell silent. Everyone looked uncomfortably between Amanda and me. "What exactly are you announcing, Amanda?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Well, as Dad's only child, I think it's only fair that I inherit the family vacation home now while I'm young enough to enjoy it properly. Mom can find a nice condo more suitable for someone her age." She smiled as if she'd just announced she was bringing dessert. One of our oldest friends, Janet, nearly choked on her wine. "Amanda, that's incredibly inappropriate." "It's just practical," Tyler jumped in smoothly. "This big house is too much for Judy to manage alone. We'd be doing her a favor." "This house is in my name," I said quietly but firmly. "Frank and I purchased it together. It's not part of any inheritance yet." Amanda's face hardened. "That's just a technicality. Dad would have wanted me to have it. You're being selfish by holding on to properties that should rightfully come to me eventually anyway." The evening dissolved into uncomfortable tension after that. Our guests made excuses to retire early, leaving Amanda, Tyler, and me in strained silence. "You're embarrassing yourself," I finally said. "This conversation is over. We can discuss family property when you've demonstrated financial responsibility and respect." Amanda slammed her hand on the table. "Financial responsibility. You've been hoarding the family wealth while Tyler and I struggle. Do you know what that's like? Our friends all have family money, family connections. We're the only ones scraping by. Scraping by in a house I purchased for you with vacations I fund and failed businesses I've bankrolled." I responded, my patience finally breaking. "Your father wanted you to understand the value of work before inheriting anything substantial." "My father would be ashamed of how you've treated me," she shouted, storming out with Tyler close behind. I sat alone at the table, surrounded by half-finished meals and the wreckage of what I'd hoped would be a healing weekend. Sleep eluded me that night as I wrestled with painful realizations. Had I failed Frank by not finding a better way to teach Amanda? Had my attempts to protect her from entitlement backfired so completely, the daughter I had raised with such hope and love now saw me as nothing but an obstacle between her and wealth she hadn't earned? As I watched the sunrise from my window, I made a difficult decision. Sometimes love means doing the hard thing, the painful thing. Sometimes it means letting go of what feels safe to create the possibility of growth. Little did I know that Amanda was making her own decisions that would set us on an irreversible collision course. At precisely 9:00 the next morning, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Amanda and Tyler standing there, both dressed as if for a business meeting. Their expressions were cold, determined. "We need to talk," Amanda said, brushing past me without waiting for an invitation. Tyler followed, his eyes already scanning the living room as if mentally rearranging the furniture. I closed the door and followed them into my own living room where they had already seated themselves on the sofa. Neither offered me a seat in my own home. "Mom," Amanda began in a clipped, rehearsed tone, "Tyler and I have given this a lot of thought. It's time for you to move on from this house." "Move on," I repeated, though I had anticipated something like this after last night. "Yes," she continued, "at your age, you don't need a beach property this size. It's wasteful. Tyler and I are at a stage in our lives where this house would be perfect for entertaining and starting our family." Tyler nodded in agreement. "We've already spoken with some contacts about financing. Of course, if you simply transferred ownership to Amanda as an early inheritance, that would be the smoothest solution." I looked between them, these strangers wearing my daughter's face and speaking with such calculated entitlement. And if I don't agree, Amanda's expression hardened, then things could get unpleasant. Dad would have wanted me to have this property. We could contest the current arrangement, argue that he intended a family trust. It would get messy, expensive, and public. You have 24 hours to decide. Tyler added, his voice silky smooth but threatening. We think that's generous. Amanda stood up, smoothing her skirt. You have 24 hours to get out. We've already measured for new furniture. I want this place empty by tomorrow. She proceeded to walk through my home, pointing out changes they plan to make. This wall will come down. That awful artwork you love will go. We'll gut the kitchen entirely. It's so dated. And your bedroom will become a home gym. There was cruel pleasure in her voice as she systematically dismissed every aspect of the home I had shared with Frank, every space filled with memories of our family when it was whole and happy. You'll be so much happier in a senior-focused community. She continued, her voice dripping with false concern. This place is too big for someone your age to maintain anyway. I remained outwardly calm, though inside I felt as if I were bleeding. This was my child, the baby I had nursed, the little girl whose nightmares I had soothed, the teenager whose heartbreaks I had comforted. Now she stood before me, calculating how quickly she could erase all trace of me from a home filled with memories of her father. I'll need time to think, I said quietly. 24 hours, Amanda repeated, already walking toward the door. Not a minute more. Then we start legal proceedings. At the door, she turned back with a final twist of the knife. It's really your own fault, Mom. If you had been more generous over the years, we wouldn't have to take these measures. After they left, I allowed myself 10 minutes to cry. 10 minutes to mourn the daughter I thought I had raised, the values I thought I had instilled. 10 minutes for the pain that felt physical, a mother's heart breaking. Then I dried my tears and picked up the phone. Sarah, it's Judy. I need your help with an emergency situation. Sarah had been our attorney since Frank and I purchased our second property. She knew everything about our holdings, the true extent of our wealth, and Frank's wishes for Amanda's inheritance. What's happened? She asked, immediately alert. I explained the situation. Amanda's ultimatum, the 24-hour deadline, the threats of legal action. She has no grounds for any of that, Sarah said firmly. The beach house is solely in your name. There's no documentation suggesting Frank intended it as a direct inheritance. I know, I said. But this isn't really about legal standing. It's about the relationship, about the person she's becoming. What do you want to do? Sarah asked. I took a deep breath. Something drastic. Something that might seem cruel, but might be her only chance to understand what really matters. Can you come over and bring Jerry from the real estate division? Within an hour, Sarah arrived with Jerry, our longtime real estate expert. Around the dining table where just last night Amanda had made her shocking announcement, we formulated a plan. You're sure about this? Sarah asked when we had worked out all the details. This is irreversible. I'm sure, I said, feeling a strange calm. Frank always said sometimes you have to lose something to understand its value. Jerry made some calls and left to set things in motion. Sarah stayed helping me review financial documents and preparing the necessary paperwork. There's something else you should know, she said hesitantly as we worked. Our investigator found some concerning social media posts from Amanda. She showed me her tablet. There were Amanda's social media accounts filled with posts about her beach house and plans for renovation. In several photos, she was giving friends tours of the property, clearly presenting herself as the owner. In one particularly painful video, she referred to me as the previous owner, who doesn't know it's time to move on. There's more, Sarah said gently. She's been doing the same with another property. She swiped to different posts. These showed Amanda at our mountain cabin in Colorado, a property she had visited only twice, and that was also solely in my name. Here, too, she was presenting herself as the owner, talking about her inheritance and family property. This second property isn't even one she's asked about directly, Sarah observed. She's just claiming it. The revelation was another blow, but it only confirmed I was making the right decision. This wasn't just about the beach house. This was about a pattern of entitlement that would continue to grow unless checked. Add the mountain property to our plan, I said firmly. Sarah raised her eyebrows. Both properties, are you certain? Both, I confirmed. It's time for a complete reset. And we worked late into the night finalizing documents and coordinating with contacts. By midnight, everything was in place. I packed a small suitcase with irreplaceable personal items and family photographs. Everything else, the furniture, the artwork, the kitchen equipment Frank and I had collected over decades, I would leave behind. As I prepared to leave, I took one last walk through the beach house. In Amanda's old bedroom, I paused at the wall where we had marked her height each birthday. In the kitchen, I touched the countertop where she had learned to bake cookies with Frank. So many memories in these walls. "I'm doing the right thing," I whispered to Frank's memory. "The only thing I can do now." Then I drove to my secret sanctuary, a downtown penthouse apartment I had purchased after Frank's death, but never told Amanda about. One of many properties and investments she knew nothing about. Tomorrow would bring pain, but perhaps also the beginning of wisdom for my daughter. I returned to the beach house at 8:30 the next morning, determined to be there before Amanda and Tyler arrived. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen island watching the minutes tick by. At precisely 9:05, I heard vehicles outside, multiple vehicles. Looking through the window, I saw Amanda and Tyler pulling up in their car. Behind them was a moving truck, and behind that another car with what appeared to be an interior designer Amanda often tagged in her social media posts. They were so confident in their ultimatum that they had brought a moving team and a designer. They hadn't even waited for my response. I opened the door before they could ring the bell. "Good morning," I said calmly. Amanda looked momentarily taken aback by my composed demeanor, perhaps having expected tears or pleading. She quickly recovered. "So, have you made arrangements?" she asked, already stepping inside as if the house were hers. Tyler and the designer followed. "Yes, I have," I replied. "Please, let's sit down, there's coffee." Suspicion flickered across Amanda's face, but she sat at the kitchen island. The designer hovered awkwardly by the doorway while Tyler immediately began opening cabinet doors, assessing the contents. "I'm afraid there's been a change in plans," I said, taking a sip of my coffee. "What does that mean?" Amanda demanded. "We were very clear yesterday." "Yes, you were," I agreed, "which is why I took action immediately. I sold the beach house last night." There was a moment of perfect silence. Amanda's face went blank with shock. Tyler froze with his hand on a cabinet door. "That's not possible," Amanda finally sputtered. "You can't sell a house overnight." "Actually, you can when you have the right connections and a cash buyer. The sale was completed at 11:30 last night. I no longer own this property." The color drained from Amanda's face. "You're lying. This is some kind of trick." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. I rose to answer it, revealing a well-dressed couple in their 40s, James and Elaine Bennett, the new owners. "Good morning, Judy," James said warmly. "We came by early as promised to do the final walkthrough and get the keys." "Perfect timing," I said, ushering them in. "James, Elaine, this is my daughter Amanda and her husband Tyler. They were just leaving." Amanda stood frozen, her expression cycling through disbelief, rage, and dawning horror. Tyler was the first to recover, instantly switching to his smooth, charming mode. "There must be some misunderstanding." He began extending his hand to James. "This property has been in our family for generations." "Not according to the title search," Elaine said pleasantly. "It was purchased 15 years ago by Judith and Franklin Pierce. We've been looking for a beach property for ages and are so grateful Judy was willing to sell so quickly. We closed at an excellent price, too." Amanda found her voice at last high and strained. "Mom, what have you done? You can't just sell our family home." "It wasn't our family home, Amanda. It was an investment property that we enjoyed occasionally, and it was solely in my name, as you discovered when you went through my files without permission." The designer had already slipped out the door, clearly wanting no part in the unfolding drama. The moving truck crew stood awkwardly by their vehicle. "This isn't over," Amanda hissed, grabbing her purse. "I'll call our lawyer right now. This sale can't be legal with such short notice." "Feel free to call any lawyer you like," I replied calmly. "The sale is completely legitimate and properly recorded. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to complete the handover to the Bennetts." Amanda stormed out, pulling Tyler with her. Through the window, I watched her screaming into her phone, presumably to some attorney friend. Tyler stood beside their car, already typing on his phone, his expression calculating rather than upset. The Bennetts looked uncomfortable. "I'm so sorry about that," I said to them. "Family complications. But I assure you the sale is perfectly legal and the property is now yours without any encumbrances." We completed our business quickly. I handed over the keys, signed the final paperwork Sarah had prepared, and wished them happiness in their new home. As I walked to my car, I heard Amanda still on the phone, her voice rising hysterically. "What do you mean there's nothing I can do? It's my inheritance. She can't just sell it overnight." I drove directly to my downtown penthouse. Within an hour, my phone was exploding with calls and texts from Amanda, alternating between threats, accusations, and eventually, as reality sank in, desperate pleas. "Mom, please tell me where you are. We need to talk about this. You've made a terrible mistake." "This is elder abuse. You're not thinking clearly. Tyler knows a specialist who can help you." "Mom, I'm sorry if I upset you. Please call me back. We can work this out." I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I called Sarah and confirmed that everything had proceeded according to plan with both properties. "Yes, both sales are complete," she assured me. "The mountain property closed this morning. The buyer was thrilled to get it sight unseen at that price. And they know they can do whatever renovations they want." "Absolutely. Both properties were sold without conditions. You have officially divested yourself of both the beach house and the mountain cabin." "Thank you, Sarah. Now let's proceed with phase 2. Around 4 in the afternoon, there was a pounding on my penthouse door. I hadn't told Amanda where I lived, but she must have followed me or perhaps tracked my phone. I took a deep breath and opened the door. Amanda burst in, her face streaked with tears and makeup. Tyler followed, his expression dark and calculating. "How could you?" Amanda shouted. "How could you sell our beach house without even discussing it with me first?" "The same way you could demand I vacate my own property within 24 hours. I replied evenly. "That was different. I'm your daughter. That house should be my inheritance." "Speaking of inheritance," I said, gesturing for them to sit, "I think it's time we had a frank discussion about your father's estate." Something in my tone made them both pause. They sat cautiously on the edge of my white leather sofa, taking in the luxury of my penthouse for the first time. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a spectacular city view that would have cost millions, far more than they believed I could afford. "What is this place?" Tyler asked, his eyes darting around, reassessing. "This is my home," I said simply. "One of several properties I own." Amanda's brow furrowed in confusion. "Several properties? What are you talking about? We knew about the beach house and the little mountain cabin?" "No, Amanda, you knew about what I allowed you to know about." I sat across from them and placed a thick folder on the coffee table. "Your father and I made a decision when you were born. We decided that despite our success, we would raise you to understand the value of work and the responsibility of wealth." I opened the folder and began laying out documents: property deeds, investment portfolios, business holdings. Amanda and Tyler's eyes widened with each new page. "Your father built a real estate empire that I have continued to grow since his death. Our net worth currently stands at approximately $80 million. Tyler made a choking sound. Amanda's mouth opened and closed without words. $80 million, she finally managed to whisper. "Yes. The beach house you were so fixated on represented less than 4% of our holdings, the mountain cabin even less. But we've always lived so modestly," Amanda said, struggling to process this information. "By choice," I explained. "Your father came from nothing. He never wanted his child to grow up entitled or believing that money comes easily. He wanted you to develop character before wealth." I continued laying out documents showing multiple properties across the country, commercial real estate holdings, investment portfolios, and business interests. With each new revelation, Tyler leaned forward more eagerly, while Amanda seemed to shrink into herself. "All this time, we've been struggling to keep up with our friends to maintain appearances," she said quietly. "And you were secretly worth millions." "Not secretly, discreetly. There's a difference. The plan was always for you to inherit everything eventually. but only when you demonstrated financial responsibility and understood that wealth is a responsibility, not a right. Tyler, having recovered from his initial shock, slid closer to the documents. So, what does this mean now? Does Amanda inherit everything? The naked greed in his voice was unmistakable. I looked directly at him. That depends entirely on Amanda and on you. Your actions yesterday and today demonstrated exactly why your father was concerned. The entitlement, the willingness to bully and threaten to get what you want. These are not the qualities of someone ready to manage significant wealth responsibly. But you sold our inheritance, Amanda protested, though with less conviction than before. I sold 2 properties that were never promised to you, and there's something else you should know. I slid another document across the table. This is the deed to the mountain property you've been showing off to your friends on social media claiming as your own. Amanda had the grace to blush. I was just anticipating. No, you were lying and creating a false image. And as of this morning, that property has also been sold. What? Amanda gasped. But I didn't even ask for that one yet. Exactly, yet you were already presenting yourself as the owner making plans for it, showing it off to friends. So now, like the beach house, it's gone. Tyler's expression had transformed as he calculated the implications of everything I was saying. But the rest of all this, he gestured at the documents. Amanda is still the heir to all this, right? That depends. I said, gathering the papers back into the folder. I've instructed my attorneys to create a new inheritance structure. From now on, any inheritance will be tied directly to demonstrated responsibility. For every dollar Amanda earns through legitimate employment or successful business that she builds herself, not funded by me, a matching amount will be released from the trust. That's ridiculous, Tyler exploded. She's your daughter. She shouldn't have to work for what's rightfully hers. Exactly that attitude is why we're in this situation, I replied calmly. Nothing in life that's valuable comes without effort, Tyler. Amanda sat silently, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, I saw a flicker of the daughter I'd raised. Not the entitled woman who had demanded my home, but the child who had once understood right from wrong. So we get nothing unless Amanda works some menial job. Tyler pressed, unable to hide his dismay at seeing his meal ticket potentially vanish. Not nothing. You have a lovely home that I purchased for you. You have had every advantage and opportunity. Now you have the chance to earn your way just as your grandfather did Amanda. I looked at my daughter. He would be so disappointed by your behavior, but he would also believe in your capacity to learn and grow from this. Amanda finally looked up, her expression a complex mixture of shame, anger, and confusion. Did Dad really want it this way, for you to hide everything from me? He wanted you to develop character and gratitude before wealth. The hiding was a means to an end. Perhaps we made mistakes in how we approached it, but our intentions were good. I paused. The question now is what you will do with this information. Tyler stood abruptly. This is manipulation. You can't hold her inheritance hostage like this. It's not hostage, Tyler. It's a structure designed to help Amanda grow into the person her father and I always believed she could be. I could see the calculations running behind Tyler's eyes. $80 million, but only accessible through years of actual work and demonstrated responsibility. Not the quick payday he had anticipated. Amanda remained seated, staring at her hands. I don't even know what to think right now. That's understandable, I said more gently. This is a lot to process. But know this, I sold those properties not out of spite, but because your attitude toward them revealed you weren't ready for the responsibility they represented. Everything I've done out of love for you and respect for your father's wishes. Tyler paced the room, agitation evident in every movement. So what now? We just leave and pretend this conversation never happened. Go get jobs like common people. His mask had slipped, completely revealing the calculating opportunist beneath. I watched as Amanda's expression changed, seeing perhaps for the first time the man she had married. Now, I said quietly, you both have choices to make. About who you want to be and what kind of life you want to build. Earned, not given. I stood, signaling the end of our conversation. I suggest you take some time to think about everything we've discussed. My door will be open when you're ready to talk about moving forward in a healthier way." They left in silence, Tyler seething, Amanda subdued. As I closed the door behind them, I felt a profound mixture of grief and hope. I had lost the beach house filled with memories of Frank and our family's happier days. I had perhaps temporarily lost my relationship with my daughter, but maybe, just maybe, I had created the possibility of something more valuable being built from the ruins. 6 months passed with minimal contact from Amanda. Through mutual friends, I learned that she and Tyler were taking some time apart. He had reportedly started seeing a young woman from a wealthy family almost immediately after their separation, confirming what I had suspected about his motivations all along. I kept myself busy managing our properties and investments, though the work felt hollow without family to share it with. I volunteered at a women's shelter, finding some healing and helping others rebuild their lives. Still, I checked my phone, often hoping for a message from Amanda. When it finally came, it was a simple text: "Mom, can we talk?" We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe downtown. Amanda arrived alone, looking thinner and less polished than I remembered. Gone were the designer clothes and perfect makeup. She wore jeans, a simple sweater, and little makeup. She looked younger, more like the daughter I remembered. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, her voice subdued. "Of course," I replied, resisting the urge to reach for her hand. "How are you?" "Honestly, I've been better." She attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Tyler left. Once he realized there wasn't going to be a quick inheritance, he found someone with more accessible money. I nodded, unsurprised but sympathetic to her pain. "At first, I blamed you entirely," she continued. "I was so angry. I thought you had ruined my life, my marriage, everything. I even talked to lawyers about contesting your control of Dad's estate." "I know," I said. Sarah had kept me informed of Amanda's legal inquiries, which had gone nowhere. But then I had a lot of time to think about Dad, about how you both raised me, about what you were trying to teach me. Her eyes filled with tears. And about how completely I failed to learn those lessons. "Amanda?" "No, please let me finish." She took a deep breath. "I was entitled. I was ungrateful. I was honestly a terrible daughter. And I'm so, so sorry, Mom." The tears spilled over, then running down her cheeks. My own eyes watered in response. I've spent months going through every memory, every interaction, seeing it all differently. You and Dad gave me everything important: love, education, values. And all I could focus on was what I thought you were withholding. I reached for her hand, then unable to hold back any longer. She gripped mine tightly. "I've been seeing a therapist," she continued, "trying to understand how I became that person. The one who could stand in your house and demand you leave. I still can't believe I did that." "We all make mistakes," I said gently. "The question is what we learn from them." Amanda nodded, wiping away tears. "I've learned a lot. And I've done something else too." She straightened her shoulders slightly. "I got a job." "You did." I couldn't hide my surprise and pleasure. "Nothing glamorous. I'm working as an assistant at a small marketing firm. Starting at the bottom like Dad would have wanted. It's hard and some days I hate it, but it feels important somehow." Pride swelled in my chest, far greater than any I'd felt at Amanda's college graduation or wedding. "That's wonderful, Amanda." "I'm not asking for anything," she added quickly. "I don't expect any changes to the inheritance structure. I think it's actually exactly what I need right now. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying to be better, to be the person you and Dad raised me to be." And we talked for hours that day, more honestly than we had in years. About Frank, about our family history, about the mistakes we'd both made. I acknowledged that perhaps keeping her completely in the dark about our wealth had been an error, creating an unnecessary mystique around money. She admitted that her fixation on material things had blinded her to what truly mattered. Our reconciliation was not instant or complete. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. But it was a beginning. Over the following year, I watched with quiet joy as Amanda transformed. She worked diligently at her job, earning a promotion within 8 months. She moved from the large house I'd bought her to a modest apartment she could afford on her salary. She began volunteering at a food bank on weekends. Most importantly, she stopped comparing herself to others, stopped the performative social media posts, and began building authentic relationships. Tyler eventually filed for divorce, which Amanda accepted with surprising grace. He did me a favor, really, she told me. I needed to learn who I was on my own. On the anniversary of our confrontation, I invited Amanda to lunch at an oceanfront restaurant not far from where our beach house had been. After we ordered, I handed her a small wrapped box. "What's this, Mom?" she asked. "Open it," I encouraged. Inside was a key and a photograph of a small but charming beach cottage. "Mom," she questioned, confused. "I bought it last month," I explained. "It's about a mile down the shore from our old place. Much smaller, but with potential. I thought perhaps we could fix it up together. It's in both our names." Amanda's eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve this." "It's not about deserving, sweetheart. It's about building something new together. A new relationship, new memories." She fingered the key thoughtfully. "I'd like that. But I want to contribute. I've been saving from my job." I smiled, hearing Frank's values in her words. "We'll make it a true partnership then." As we ate lunch overlooking the ocean, I felt Frank's presence more strongly than I had since his death. I could almost hear him saying, "You did it, Judy. You found a way." "You know," Amanda said thoughtfully, "I think I finally understand what Dad meant about wealth being a responsibility, not a right. It's taken me 33 years, but I get it now." "He would be so proud of who you're becoming," I told her truthfully. "I've been thinking about starting my own business," she added. "Something small but meaningful. A consulting firm to help small businesses with marketing. No investor money, not even yours. Just building something from scratch with what I've learned." "That sounds wonderful," I said, meaning it. Later, as we walked along the beach, Amanda stopped to watch the waves. "I lost so much this past year," she reflected. "The beach house, the mountain cabin, my marriage, my illusions. But somehow I feel like I gained more than I lost." "What did you gain?" I asked. She turned to me, her face peaceful in a way I hadn't seen since she was a child. "Perspective, independence, self-respect." She smiled. "And I got my mother back." As we continued our walk, I thought about inheritance. Not just money or property, but the values and lessons we pass from one generation to the next. Frank had been right all along. The most valuable inheritance had nothing to do with bank accounts or real estate. It was character resilience and the capacity to learn from mistakes. I had nearly lost my daughter to entitlement and materialism. But through a painful process, she had found her way back to the values that truly mattered. And in that, despite everything we had both lost along the way, we had gained what was truly irreplaceable: each other. What about you? What do you consider the most valuable inheritance you've received from family? Material possessions or life lessons? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Remember, sometimes the things we lose open the door to finding what we truly need. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.